Unleashing compassion. Caring for dogs rescued from the dog meat trade. When 61 dogs were put into our care practically overnight, 2 of our amazing staff members came to their rescue. 6.3.224. Taking care of a dog is full of fun and enjoyable moments, but it also, of course, comes with a lot of work and responsibility. So just imagine what it would be like to suddenly be responsible for the care of 61 precious pups. This is what happened to our Cambodian staff in Siem Reap back in 2021, when 61 dogs were suddenly put into our care. They were rescued from a dog meat trade truck that was on its way directly to a slaughterhouse. The dog traders were apprehended by the Siem Reap authorities, who were upholding the newly instated law, and 4 Paws supported the interception as they attempted to smuggle dogs out of Siem Reap to a different province. Whilst the dogs were shaken up and some sadly injured, luckily, they started making vast improvements day by day after their rescue. This was all down to the hard work and compassion shown by our Cambodian caretakers, Thornchout and Cheat Vibal. Every day the 2 of them would take care of all the dogs' needs, including but not limited to cleaning their shelters, taking them for walks and providing medical assistance where necessary. Each dog would require a bath twice a month, and some were still so traumatized by their prior experiences that they would attempt to bite Thorn and Cheat. However, the pair never lost their patience or their hope, and continued to love and care for these dogs. When asked about his time at 4 Paws, Chout reminisced about one dog they named Maverick, who surprised him with her transformation after moving into the shelter. She was a nervous and scared dog when she first arrived, but with time, love, and care, she blossomed. He admitted that prior to joining 4 Paws, he had not felt such a deep connection to his own pets, and did not believe that he had a particular affinity for animals. In fact, both staff members shared a similar story regarding how prior to this experience, neither had considered quite how severe the horrors and risks regarding dog meat trade are. Since working at the shelter, they have been amazed at how much of a difference the work made in improving the lives of these furry creatures and providing them with the chance to find a new home. After seeing with their own eyes what this unbelievable cruelty does to the poor animals, they are now strong advocates for a ban on this trade. Due to their amazing efforts to socialize and leash train all the rescues, miraculously every single dog could successfully be adopted. 2 million people across the world unite to end the dog and cat meat trade in Southeast Asia. We have reached a huge milestone, and we want to thank each and every one of you. The 17th of October 2023. Since 2019, the campaign to end the dog and cat meat trade in Southeast Asia has received overwhelming global support, demonstrating the urgent need for change. Every year, over 9 million dogs and 1 million cats are brutally slaughtered for the trade in Vietnam, Cambodia, and Indonesia. And now 2 million people across the globe have demanded an end to this unimaginable cruelty. We have reached a huge milestone, and it would not have been possible without you. Following the launch of the campaign, our teams across the world have worked tirelessly to end the barbaric trade, and we are so proud of our achievements to date. As part of our work in Vietnam, Hoi An People's Committee signed a historic memorandum of understanding with 4 Paws to phase out the dog and cat meat trade and become Vietnam's first tourist-friendly city. 4 Paws has become the first animal welfare organization to join the One Health Partnership framework for zoonosis control in Vietnam, forming a new working group to specifically tackle issues relating to companion animals. In Cambodia, we hosted our first pet expo in Siem Reap, where key ministerial stakeholders and provincial authorities came together to discuss the impacts of the dog meat trade on Cambodia's tourism and public health. As part of our work as members of the Dog Meat Free Indonesia Coalition, we have seen bans on the trade introduced in 22 cities and regencies across the country, including the capital city of Jakarta. Every time we've asked for your help, we are so grateful that you have taken the time to stand alongside us and demand change. In addition to the 2 million supporters that signed the petition, more than 33,000 of you sent letters to the Deputy Prime Minister, Vu Duc Dam, asking for an end to the trade in Vietnam. 24,000 of you wrote to the National Tourism Boards of Vietnam, Cambodia, and Indonesia, urging for an immediate end to the trade. 15,000 of you wrote to the UK and US ambassadors in Vietnam, urging them to use their position within the One Health Partnership to end the trade. 15,000 of you ran over 2 million km Vietnam to demonstrate support to ending the trade. 13,500 of you wrote to the Ministry of Tourism, pressing for an end to the trade in Vietnam. What happens now? You should be so proud to reach this amazing milestone. 2 million people have said no to the dog and cat meat trade. We will be presenting this petition to the governments in the region. Your signatures providing vital support to our ongoing work to end the cruel trade. There is still a long way to go before we see an end to the dog and cat meat trade in Vietnam, Cambodia and Indonesia. But with more than 2 million voices behind us, we will continue to close slaughterhouses. South Korea announces groundbreaking ban on the consumption of dog meat. In a historic move, South Korea is paving the way for other countries to follow suit. The 28th of November, 2023. Here at Four Paws, we welcome this historic step by the South Korean government to ban the consumption of dog meat, and we hope it paves the way for other Asian countries to follow suit. In a move that is being celebrated by animal lovers across the world, Yu Udong, head of policy for the ruling People Power Party, announced the plans on Friday, the 17th of November, 2023. Saying it is time to put an end to social conflicts and controversies around dog meat consumption through the enactment of a special act to end it. Across an estimated 1,000 breeding farms, up to 1 million dogs are farmed and eaten in South Korea annually. However, there's been mounting pressure from citizens within the country, alongside growing international outcry, to ban the cruel trade once and for all. A Gallup Korea poll in 2022 found that 64% of South Koreans opposed the consumption of dog meat, while only 8% of respondents had eaten dog meat in the last year. Similar surveys carried out by Four Paws in Vietnam and Cambodia indicate a much higher demand for an end to the trade. In fact, our survey found that a total of 91% of Vietnamese citizens say the trade should be banned or discouraged, and only 6% of Vietnamese citizens regularly consume dog meat. Meanwhile, in Cambodia, our survey concluded that 90% of the public would support a ban on the trade, and only 12% of citizens regularly consume dog meat. We therefore hope that this huge step forward by South Korea, having acknowledged and acted upon the public outcry, will set an example to other governments that ending the abhorrent dog meat trade is not only achievable, but highly desired. Much like Four Paws livelihood conversions for slaughterhouse owners, those involved in the trade in South Korea will be offered support by the government to move away from the industry and find new sources of sustainable income. The new bill is expected to come into full effect by 2027, to allow a 3-year grace period for the industry to shut down operations completely. We hope that this momentous action by the South Korean government will send a clear message to others around the world that it's finally time for the dog meat trade to be abolished for good. Every year, an estimated 10 million dogs and cats are captured, transported and sorted for their meat in Cambodia, Vietnam and Indonesia. Many of these animals are stolen pets or stray animals taken from the streets to supply the demands of the trade. The sheer scale of the trade and the suffering involved makes it one of the most severe animal welfare issues in Southeast Asia. In addition, there are severe health implications with links between the dog and cat meat trade and rabies, as well as conditions ripe for disease emergence. Four Paws' goal is for governments in Cambodia, Vietnam and Indonesia to introduce, strengthen and enforce animal protection laws, which will bring an end to the capture, slaughter and consumption of dogs and cats. We've been able to make some progress, such as closing one of the last remaining dog meat restaurants in Hoi An, Vietnam, and we hope that this abhorrent trade will someday be completely eradicated. Empathy, respect and understanding caring for dogs rescued from the dog meat trade is so much more than a job. I have learned a lot about love and resilience. These amazing creatures can sense everything and seem to give back endlessly. The love and trust I got from these 61 heroes that day is something I will never forget. It breaks my heart to know that millions of dogs are slaughtered in Southeast Asia each year, but these 61 dogs are a reminder that we are making a difference to create a better, kinder world for animals. Public awareness and support are increasing, and laws are changing. As for Jackson, we became fast friends. Each day, I watched how he and the other dogs healed a bit more from their trauma. It is a longer journey for some than others, but I have promised them all that I will be there to help them along the way. A-list actors support animal welfare campaign actors Brian Cox, CBE, and Thusam Bedu are throwing their weight behind the Four Paws campaign, which is calling upon governments to prioritize animal welfare policies to prevent the next pandemic. 12.7.22 Vienna, the 12th of July 2022, to highlight World Zoonosis Day. Global Animal Welfare Organization, Four Paws have teamed up with leading actors Brian Cox, CBE, and Thusam Bedu to underline the essential need to put animal welfare front and center when it comes to trying to prevent the next pandemic. Cox and Bedu have both contributed to a new Four Paws video, which calls for a paradigm shift in how humankind treats animals in the future to prevent the next pandemic. This can only be done by prioritizing health for all humans, animals and the environment as a priority, and establishing key prevention measures on a national and global level through intergovernmental organizations. Last December, at a special session of the World Health Assembly (WHA), there was an agreement to develop and put in place an international instrument on pandemic prevention, preparedness and response. This agreement is now being negotiated between World Health Organization, who member states, with Four Paws advocating that a One Health approach and strategy that highlights the interconnectedness between the welfare of humans, animals and nature needs to be implemented within the instrument. The successful adoption of a One Health approach will require fundamental shifts in our production and consumption patterns and our economic systems. This is needed as scientific studies show that 75% of emerging infectious diseases are zoonoses, meaning they are of animal origin. Such spillovers happen because of the way humans treat animals and interfere with nature. In October of last year, Four Paws published a future study on pandemic prevention, which produced stark and worrying results. International experts from disciplines such as virology, human and veterinary medicine, and climate research who participated in the study predict a worrying picture for the future. Zoonoses are a clear symptom of the serious crisis between humans, animals and the environment, and the extent to which animal suffering contributes to disease outbreaks, with dramatic consequences on health, society, and the economy, has been highly underestimated. Denny's faces mounting pressure to eliminate crates for pigs, Reuters reports. In collaboration with Animal Equality, global media outlet Reuters released an article highlighting the increased pressure Denny's to eliminate crates for pregnant pigs. Yesterday, following collaboration with Animal Equality, global media outlet Reuters reported on the increasing pressure Denny's is receiving to end the use of crates for pregnant pigs. The corporation is currently facing a growing nationwide campaign by Animal Equality and an upcoming investors meeting on May 15th for a shareholder vote on the issue. A proposal by the Humane Society of the United States, HSUS, a shareholder in Denny's, was submitted ahead of the meeting. The proposal validated the work of advocates who have been demanding for over a year that the corporation end the use of crates, as the corporation promised to do 10 years ago. As cited by the proposal and Animal Equality's campaign, Denny's has failed to make meaningful progress despite this public promise. Now, Denny's faces a shareholder vote that could finally push the corporation to set targets and timelines for reducing or eliminating the use of crates in its supply chain. Institutional Shareholder Services, ISS, an influential proxy advisory firm, has supported HSUS's proposal. After analyzing its policies, ISS flagged how Denny's adjusted its language to significantly weaken its transparency surrounding its commitment regarding the issue. We remain optimistic that Animal Equality's strong campaign and the shareholder vote will result in progress for pregnant pigs trapped in cages inside Denny's supply chain. We will continue to speak up for animals and consumers concerned for their well-being until Denny's does what is right and ends this practice. Sharon Nones. The mounting pressure by Animal Equality. Denny's shareholder meeting is scheduled as Animal Equality's campaign against the corporation comes to a head. For over a year, the organization has rallied advocates across the country to urge the company to eliminate crates for pigs, which it committed to doing over a decade ago. By abandoning its promise, Denny's is allowing pregnant pigs to live in extreme confinement inside cages barely larger than their own bodies. These so-called gestation crates have been described as if a human were forced to live in an airplane seat. The animals cannot turn around, take more than a step forward or backward, socialize with other animals, or build nests in preparation for birth as they would in the wild. They suffer from high rates of stress and injury inside the tiny crates, oftentimes banging their heads against the bars in distress. Denny's lack of corporate responsibility sparked a campaign by Animal Equality, which has been increasing its pressure for the past year. The campaign has continued across the country, with 18 nationwide protests, over 53,000 messages sent by consumers, and numerous contact attempts by Animal Equality. So much more than a job. Overnight, I became a caregiver to 61 dogs after one of the biggest rescues from the dog meat trade in Cambodia. The 20th of September, 2022. Early one morning in February 2021, I woke up to a call from my colleague. She informed me that the Siem Reap Provincial Department of Agriculture and the Provincial Police Commissioner had just intercepted a minivan carrying 61 dogs headed for slaughter in Kampangkam, Cambodia. The authorities had called on 4 paws for help, and this situation required all hands on deck. These dogs had been suffering 4 hours, cramped together 8 to 10 to a cage. They were injured, dehydrated, and needed to be released and treated immediately. The authorities brought the dogs to our adoption center, where I work, as a caretaker to support dogs to overcome their trauma after being rescued from the dog meat trade. The team and I did everything we could to take care of these terrified beings, confused and traumatized, many of them cowered when we released them from the cages, uncertain if more pain was to come. Doing our best to reassure the dogs, the team didn't waste any time. We got to work and provided much-needed medical attention, water, food, and affection to the dogs, and slowly they came to trust us humans a little bit more. Victims of the trade. Many people assume that most victims of the dog meat trade are strays snatched off the street. That's not entirely true. As we were helping these poor animals, we could tell that many were also stolen pets that had been loved and cared for by their families. Ripped from their homes, abused and traumatized, all we could do was show them and the other survivors that they were all safe now, that we were here to love and care for them. The room filled with panic. We had all experienced a lot that day, humans and dogs alike. As I was about to leave for the evening, I wished the dogs a good night. But before I could turn off the lights, desperate whimpering broke out in the room. I went back into the kennel to offer them a few more scratches behind the ears when one of the dogs jumped on my arm and licked my face. This friendly fellow would later come to be known as Jackson. As I hugged Jackson, feeling a bit taken aback by his reaction, I looked around the shelter. Dozens of pairs of eyes were staring at me, pleading, "Don't leave us alone." How could I leave them that night? They had been through hell and only narrowly escaped the butcher's knife. The dogs needed me. I called my family to tell them I would be spending the night at the adoption center. Lying on a makeshift bed on the ground next to the gate of the kennel, I reached my hand through the bars. Within a few moments, I felt Jackson's grateful head on my hand. Reassured by my presence, he and the other dogs were finally able to get the rest they needed that night, united to protect millions of animals, local communities, and tourists. How the tourism industry can help. The 3rd of August 2021. 4 Paws is working with travel companies and travel trade associations around the world to put an end to the dog and cat meat trade and protect both people and animals. Over 10 million dogs and cats are killed for their meat every year across Cambodia, Indonesia, and Vietnam. Many of them are stolen pets or stray dogs and cats taken from the streets. Risk to communities. In addition to animal cruelty concerns, the dog and cat meat trade also has a devastating impact on local communities, where the presence of the trade leads to increased risk of exposure to criminal activities and violence, not to mention heightened public health risks due to the documented spread of zoonotic diseases such as rabies and other pathogens. 4 Paws is calling for an end to the dog and cat meat trade in Southeast Asia in order to protect animals, people and local communities, as well as tourists. Risk to the travel industry. We are all now acutely aware of the risk of the spread of viruses to humans from unregulated, cruel live animal markets, such as COVID-19. The dog and cat meat trade poses a significant risk of spreading diseases to humans. Due to the unsanitary and brutal conditions the animals are kept in after capture, the mixing of wild and domestic species at markets, and the cross-border transportation of animals for sale and slaughter, before the dog and cat meat trade becomes the source of the next pandemic, killing millions of people and bringing entire industries and countries to a halt. We need strong and unified steps to bring about desperately needed change. If the travel industry is to build back better successfully, the dog and cat meat trade must be a part of discussions around responsible tourism and recovery strategies. But the good news is, there is a way travel companies can be a part of the solution, and many have already taken the first step. The first 24 travel companies and trade associations from around the world to our travel industry pledge to protect millions from the dog and cat meat trade in Southeast Asia. And the list is growing every day. Find out more. How can you help? The global tourism sector can be a vital influence to create long-term change. Together we can convince policymakers and the governments of Cambodia, Vietnam, and Indonesia to end the dog and cat meat trade for good. 4 Paws has written to the UNWTO and World Health Organization to urge for governments to end the trade due to of the significant public health risks it poses, and to help the travel industry build back better. We are also engaging with government departments of animal health and tourism, working with them on solutions such as helping slaughterhouse operators find alternative livelihoods, rescuing animals, and leading on local awareness campaigns. Brutality beyond the beauty. Borneo's secretive dog meat trade. The first ever dog meat investigations in Borneo. A rampant dog meat trade, the 11th of August 2021 throughout Southeast Asia. The dog meat trade is prevalent. Our work in Vietnam, Cambodia, and Indonesia has revealed acts of unbelievable cruelty, and recently, 4 Paws investigations uncovered a secretive network in Borneo. While most know of the island of Borneo for its majestic wildlife, beautiful jungle canopies, and extensive ecosystems, there is a hidden and horrendous trade behind closed doors. For years, we have been supporting the rescue and treatment of stray animals together with our local partner, Pro Natura, in East Kalimantan. During this time, we witnessed countless dogs disappear without a trace. Our recent investigation into the dog meat trade in Borneo, Indonesia, the first ever in Indonesia, revealed thousands of dogs were being killed in cruel ways every year, snatched from the streets and their homes. It has taken us some time to uncover the scale of a network that is responsible for trading, slaughtering and selling of thousands of dogs. And sadly, what we have learnt is that the methods are brutal. Dogs are often caught using poisons such as potassium cyanide, Once unable to fight back, their mouths are tightly bound shut, and they are shoved into thick burlap sacks. After being trafficked to slaughterhouses and restaurants, the dogs are bludgeoned to death, using a brick or metal pole. These words are enough to send shivers down your spine. After witnessing the cruelty of the dog meat trade and the way these dogs got slaughtered, we couldn't sleep or eat for days. It shocked us deeply, and we knew we have to do something. We have to rescue as many dogs as possible from this hell. Unleashing compassion, caring for dogs rescued from the dog meat trade. When 61 dogs were put into our care practically overnight, 2 of our amazing staff members came to their rescue. 6.3.224. Taking care of a dog is full of fun and enjoyable moments, but it also, of course, comes with a lot of work and responsibility. So just imagine what it would be like to suddenly be responsible for the care of 61 precious pups. This is what happened to our Cambodian staff in Siem Reap back in 2021, when 61 dogs were suddenly put into our care. They were rescued from a dog meat trade truck that was on its way directly to a slaughterhouse. The dog traders were apprehended by the Siem Reap authorities, who were upholding the newly instated law, and Four Paws supported the interception as they attempted to smuggle dogs out of Siem Reap to a different province. Whilst the dogs were shaken up and some sadly injured, luckily, they started making vast improvements day by day after their rescue. This was all down to the hard work and compassion shown by our Cambodian caretakers, Thorn Chout and Cheat Vibal. Every day the 2 of them would take care of all the dogs' needs, including but not limited to cleaning their shelters, taking them for walks and providing medical assistance where necessary. Each dog would require a bath twice a month, and some were still so traumatized by their prior experiences that they would attempt to bite Thorn and Cheat. However, the pair never lost their patience or their hope, and continued to love and care for these dogs. When asked about his time at Four Paws, Chout reminisced about one dog they named Maverick, who surprised him with her transformation after moving into the shelter. She was a nervous and scared dog when she first arrived, but with time, love, and care, she blossomed. He admitted that prior to joining Four Paws, he had not felt such a deep connection to his own pets, and did not believe that he had a particular affinity for animals. In fact, both staff members shared a similar story regarding how prior to this experience, neither had considered quite how severe the horrors and risks regarding dog meat trade are. Since working at the shelter, they have been amazed at how much of a difference the work made in improving the lives of these furry creatures and providing them with the chance to find a new home. After seeing with their own eyes what this unbelievable cruelty does to the poor animals, they are now strong advocates for a ban on this trade. Due to their amazing efforts to socialize and leash train all the rescues, miraculously every single dog could successfully be adopted.